with law enforcement can sometimes be very scary, intimidating, and frightening. Law enforcement should be there to serve and protect you and enforce the law. And at the same time, when you interact with law enforcement, you need to understand your rights so that way you can be protected, because the Constitution, the founders of this country, along with our legal system, believe that law enforcement without any restrictions can become tyrannical. And it's important for you to understand your rights so that way you do not become a victim of the legal system maybe treating you unfairly. This is not to say that we are against law enforcement, or that by knowing your rights somehow you're hurting law enforcement, or that you're not pro law enforcement. No, it simply means law enforcement has certain duties. You have certain legal protections. You need to understand your legal protections. Law enforcement has to understand their duties, and together that creates a balance within society. When law enforcement takes on actions and they know that the people don't understand their rights, there's more opportunity for abuse. There's more opportunity for people losing their rights, greater punishment being done to individuals who might be free of crime or simply were targeted and got worse sentences because they didn't understand their rights, and creates serious problems within society. It's important for you to understand your rights not only with law enforcement, aka the police, but also with the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is the most common interaction for Muslims within law enforcement that can be very negative, very toxic, and very oppressive. With that, let's jump 2 feet in and talk about your rights within law enforcement and the FBI. First, most important, let's balance our support and our rights, right? So again, we want good law enforcement. We want accountable law enforcement. We want law enforcement that does their duty with dignity and honor. Now, in order to help law enforcement do that, we have to understand our rights. Law enforcement are just people like you and I. Some people, and most of them, are good, but some of them are bad. And sometimes it's not just about individual people, but systems and institutions and cultures that develop over time. So if you're a law enforcement agency that has systematically targeted another group of people, oppressed them and taken away their rights, then that becomes part of your system and becomes part of the culture. And to right set that sometimes requires protest, lawsuits, politicians getting involved, internal investigations, and so on and so forth. But one basic entry is when people know their rights and demand those rights, then law enforcement is always held in check. And that check by people helps create that balance in society. So let's jump in. Rights. These rights are constitutionally protected, meaning that you have these rights intrinsically, right? You don't have to do something to earn those rights. They exist. But if you waive those rights or you don't understand those rights, then those rights can be taken away because you didn't understand or defend it. And we have to prevent that. It is a duty, a civic and religious responsibility that if your rights are violated, to report it. But also, it is a duty and a religious obligation that if you see a crime out there, if you see something wrong in society, to call law enforcement. It cannot be that you're seeing crimes and whatnot, but because the police and law enforcement are so corrupt, I'm not going to contact them. No, we should contact law enforcement, demand they do their duty, and also demand that they don't oppress people and go beyond what their legal rights are. This is the balance in society. And one of the challenges we have in our hyper-politicized society is that some people are pro-law enforcement to the point of being just deranged fanatics. No matter what law enforcement does, they're going to support them. Then you have people on the other end who just hate law enforcement and will never trust law enforcement. And I believe, as a Muslim, the answer is in the middle. Yes, certain law agencies, certain individuals, certain systems of justice can be unjust and has to be called out. And at the same time, we want righteous, good, law-abiding, dutiful law enforcement officers to protect us from real criminals and injustice that exists within the society. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to talk about, and that's what we're going to approach. Let's continue. First and foremost, when dealing with law enforcement, if you're being detained, stopped, and questioned, or if you're being arrested, meaning that you're actually getting handcuffs, you're going to be taken into the police station. They're going to book you into the police station by taking that famous looking photo of you, taking your fingerprints and putting you into their system. You have to remember these rights. Number one, you have the right to legal counsel. you have the right to an attorney. And it's important that you always, always, always take on that right that you have. Always speak to an attorney, and you should have an attorney if you're being questioned. You should never talk to law enforcement without an attorney present. Law enforcement, if they're talking to you, it's not because it's Sunday brunch and it's like a nice day. No, if law enforcement is talking to you, that means there's something wrong. They're investigating you. They're thinking of you as somebody who might be suspicious, or maybe even a witness to a potential crime. Under those circumstances, it's always better to have an attorney present to really protect you with your rights. So have an attorney present regardless of your citizenship status, whether you're a citizen, H-1B visa, that visa, this visa, or even here illegally without documentation, you still have the right to legal counsel. And you have a right to legal counsel with an interpreter who can explain to you what's going on. Silence cannot be used against you. So when you get arrested, they say the famous line, the Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. And you should do it. Because anything you say can, and actually it will, be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, then one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights? These Miranda rights are essential. Stay silent. And for many of us good people who live in America, we believe that, I've been able to build friendships and talk to people my entire life. Law enforcement are people, they seem very nice. I should trust law enforcement. So if I'm being detained or arrested, I can just talk my way out of it. Bad idea. It's much, much better to remain completely silent, say I don't answer questions until I speak to my attorney. Because the attorney can actually tell you what's going on, what's the situation, what's law enforcement have after you. And then by understanding that, that's when you can explain to your attorney how you want to respond, what your options are, and take action. Do not speak. Being silent is not an admission of guilt. You will not be in court one day and the attorney will be like, well, when the officers questioned him, he refused to talk. Therefore, we know he's guilty. This is not a movie. This is not social media. This is not TikTok or Instagram Reels, whatever it is. No, being silent is your legal right. It's best to remain silent and not say anything until you have an attorney present, and keep it minimal what you do say. Attorney protections. Remaining silent until your attorney is present. An attorney is your best protection against harmful mistakes, right? So always wait until you have an attorney present and then speak to law enforcement. You should train your children about this. You train your wife and siblings and parents and everybody. Do not speak to law enforcement without an attorney present. Now, let me wind it back a little bit as well. Sometimes law enforcement is not after you. Sometimes law enforcement is there because a crime happened and they're looking for witnesses. So let's say you're driving and you see a car slam into another car, then that car drives away. And then a few minutes later, the cops show up and then they're asking people who are there as witnesses. Okay, in that situation, you don't really need to have an attorney because obviously there's a crime. They're asking around, hey, did you see anything? Do you know anything? And then you can say, yes, I saw this and this happen. All right, that's fine. Sometimes officers do what's called canvassing. A crime happened in a neighborhood. And the cops will just knock on people's doors and be like, hey, listen, this crime happened here. We're just asking neighbors if you saw anything or if you have anything. Again, you don't need an attorney present for that typically. I would say in most cases, because the cops aren't after you. A crime occurred. They're trying to get information that they can support. Law enforcement might also ask you for ring camera footage or security footage from your home. Now, this is a little bit of a gray area and it should be done by case basis, because if they ask you for security footage, if you're able to clip it out and give them just a certain part of the footage, I think that should be okay. But if they ask you for your account, like your Ring account or your security footage account or endless footage, that is not acceptable, and I would never give that type of stuff away. Notice the difference between the two. If you suspect even a little bit that you're part of an investigation, do not talk to law enforcement. But if law enforcement comes like, hey, we're looking for this person, there's a crime in the neighborhood, something like this happened, then it could be okay. I'll give you a personal example. I bought a home here in Dallas, Texas, and when I bought a home, law enforcement came and they were asking me about the previous home owner and if he lived there anymore. In that situation, I assessed the situation. I'm like, they're not after me. They're just asking for the guy who lived in this house. I bought it like a week ago. Okay, makes sense. So then I told the officer, I just bought my home recently. I live here now. I don't know this other person. He's no longer here. The officer like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then the officer left, right? So some of this stuff is routine. You don't always have to treat law enforcement so strictly. But again, if you're suspecting it all they're after you, do not talk unless you have an attorney present and just remain silent. It's the best defense that you have. Let's continue. Law enforcement also have the right to search your home and property only if they have a search warrant present. If they have a search warrant, then they can come into your home and property. They can look into your backpack. They can look into your car and other property as well. However, without a warrant, do not allow law enforcement to enter your home, your car, your backpack, or any of your personal items ever. Law enforcement, again, is not your buddy, friend person. If they're trying to enter your home or your car or something, they're trying to find something to incriminate you potentially. So you do not want to give them access. Never permit entry without a warrant. Demand and stand firmly for your rights in a respectful manner and say, I want to see a search warrant. Do you have a search warrant to investigate my property? If not, assalamu alaikum, close the door and don't let them into your home. That is your legal right and you should protect that right. Now, if the officer does have a search warrant, take a look at that search warrant and make sure it's legitimate. What should the search warrant have? A few things to keep in mind. The date. Make sure the date is around this year or something like that. It should have your name and your address on there specifically. In the search warrant, it should also include what are they searching for. Even if they enter your home, they cannot like rummage throughout your whole house and tear it apart to find something. They only have rights to go into certain parts of your home. In addition to that, it should be signed by a judge, not just printed. The name of the judge should not just be printed. There should be a signature of the judge on that document. Take your time to look through the document, and as you're doing so, do not let them enter your premise. Now, when I say don't let them enter your premise, what I mean by that is keep your door shut and don't step aside and say, please come inside and then look at the search warrant. No, keep it shut, demand the search warrant, and if they present to you a legal, justified search warrant, then yes, you have to let them in and you have to they have the right to do that. Now, every warrant has limited scope. So what I do is if the law enforcement came to my home to search it, I'll look at the search warrant. If everything looks legal, I'll see what do they have the right to do. I would then walk with them with my phone out, recording everything that happens, record exactly what they're doing, and show them the area, and then they should have the right to search it. And then when they're done, get out of my home, get out of my property. No, you're not allowed to be here after that. Assalamu alaikum, get going, right? So that's it. Make sure it's done. Now, in those situations, this is not the movies. You cannot be a hero. If law enforcement is going to break the law and they're going to force their way into your home, you should not resist. You should not fight back. You should not push them, shove them, curse them out, or things like that. You may not get justice the day of that search warrant, but you will, inshallah, get justice later at the courtroom when it's found that what they did was illegal. So if law enforcement at your home want to search it and they're intent on coming in, they're gonna use physical force against you, take a step back. All right, you have the right to clearly say, I do not consent to a search. I do not consent to a search, and say it again and again and again. You have the right to record law enforcement. If they don't allow you to record, if it becomes dangerous, you have the right afterwards to document every single thing that happened. If you have witnesses, other family members, document as well, and then seek justice later. But in that situation, you cannot physically stop law enforcement. They have guns, right? These guys are fully armed to the teeth. Like, they might hurt you. So it can get very serious. But again, what I do is I don't open the door. I won't let them in my home. If they have a search warrant, then I'm forced to let them in, but they have limited scope. And if they're going to break the law and get in anyway, assert their right. I do not consent to a search. I do not consent to this. I do not consent to that. And it is important you say that again and again and again, and keeping yourself safe. Let's continue. Legal caution during federal interactions. A few things to remember. Law enforcement can lie to you. They can make stuff up. You cannot ever lie to law enforcement. So it's best to either stay silent Or if you're going to say something, say the absolute truth of how you recall and reconcile it. Lying can be a federal offense. Always tell the truth or stay silent, which is even better. Document, document, document. If you're in a search warrant, if you're being held by law enforcement, get their name, get their badge number, get the business card, get their agency information, because you're going to need that later if you're pursuing a case. Now imagine if you go to an attorney's office. It takes time, energy, effort, and resources to figure out who was involved in your case. We typically law enforcement, lawyers have to then get that information from the law enforcement agencies. They can make the process very difficult, very bureaucratically nightmarish. So if you already have that information, it makes that process faster and ultimately cheaper and easier to figure out what happened and what justice you can be done. Share. Give all of the details you have to a lawyer to then seek justice in that particular case. Let's continue. If you're stopped by law enforcement on the street, you're walking down the street and law enforcement pulls you over, it's important to remember, police need to have a specific reason to approach you. Police need to have a specific reason to approach you. And police cannot approach you simply because you're a Muslim or that you're wearing shalwar kameez or you're wearing a religious outfit and you look suspicious from just that religious element alone. No, that's discriminatory. That cannot be done. But police can approach you if they have a suspect. So if you imagine law enforcement, in the old days they had paper, but now they have it in their devices, and they're like, these are the suspects. This is what they look like. This is the type of cars they're driving. This is their general height, weight, look, whatever else. And if you might be that suspicious looking person, the officers have a right to stop you and question you. Police may also pat you down and assert your being for any items, such as drugs, weapons, and things of that nature, and to make sure that you're not armed and dangerous. They have the right to question you, but the questions is you only need to identify yourself and show ID. You are not obliged to answer questions. This is important. So a police officer, if you're walking on the road, they might be like, excuse me, sir, I have a few questions for you. You have to stop, identify yourself, show them your ID, and after that, you do not have to answer questions. And yes, it's easy for me to say that. It's very hard to do that in real life, but you can just say, listen, I don't answer questions. And stop talking. It's hard to do that, but that's the best thing you can do in that situation. Don't answer questions, remain silent. You are not obliged by the law to answer the police's question. That's not your job. That's not your responsibility. You're not legally required to do that, right? So you're not obliged. And then as you're being held, which is a type of detainment, you're basically not an arrest, you're being questioned and detained, you can't go. After a while, you should ask, am I free to leave? Or I'm not going to answer any questions. I've given you my ID. I've identified myself. Am I free to go? And if the officers say, yes, you're free to go, then calmly walk away. Don't stay there. Get out of there. Get out of that situation. Do not stay in that situation longer than you have to. Now, again, just putting some nuance in there. If the officers are, let's say you're walking on the road, the officer are like, have you seen this person? There's a crime happened. Have you seen this person? Me personally, I would answer that. Be like, yes or no. If I have some information, I would share that with the cops and law enforcement, right? Have you seen this person? Did the break-in entry? Did you see anything? Did you hear anything? That's different, right? We're not talking about you being detained and questioned. Rather, we're talking about a situation happening. Now, to be fair, even in that situation where law enforcement comes to you and says, did you see this criminal? Have you seen this criminal? You can say, I don't answer questions and keep going, right? You're not obliged to talk to law enforcement. But also, I'm speaking from like a human perspective, from a citizen perspective. In those situations, makes sense. You have to determine what's going on in that situation, if they're questioning you or something else, and then try to be helpful if you want to. And if you don't, if you just want to be extra cautious, you have every God-given legal right to do that and not answer questions, even if you even if they ask you these type of things. So let's continue. If you're stopped by police in your car, so let's say you're driving in your car and then the police pull you over. Now, most of the time, police pull you over as a fundraising technique, as a fundraising strategy. Law enforcement regularly and cities need to pull people over and charge them tickets and speeding tickets, stop sign violations, which is my favorite type of violation, in order to do their fundraising, in order to pay for their services within the city. Okay, in those situations, any situation, few things to keep in mind. Number one, keep your hands visible at all times. I keep my hands on my steering wheel, and when the cop pulls over, I'll pull down my window, and I speak in a kind, courteous manner, and I just say, "What's the problem, officer? Right? What's the problem?" Officers cannot just pull you over because they don't like you, because they want to show who's boss, intimidate you, but they can pull you over for obviously stop sign and other violations that you might have. Officers have the right to ask you for your license and your proof of insurance. Now, in most states, the proof of insurance is this kind of idiotic thing that's been asked by law enforcement that really has no more merit. What I mean by that is that even if you don't have your insurance on you, law enforcement can run your plates, check their database, and see if the car is insured or not. So this whole dog and pony game that they're asking for insurance is kind of weird to me personally. But they have the right to ask you for your license and for your insurance. I used to put my insurance on my phone so I could show the cop. I stopped doing that because if you unlock your phone and show your cop your insurance on your phone, well, then they can access your phone. So do not put your insurance on your phone. Get the stupid printed thing, keep it in your wallet or keep it in your car, and show them that. Show them the actual insurance card. Don't put on your phone anymore. I think this is completely idiotic and people should seriously stop doing that. In addition to that, you also have to maybe answer questions in a limited perspective. Do you know why I pulled you over? And if they ask that, you don't have to say yes. Don't give them any information. You say, "No, officer, why did you pull me over?" They have to provide a reason for it, right? They have to provide a reason for why they pulled you over. You're speeding, you've blocked a stop sign. And if they don't have a reason, then that is an unreasonable pulling you over and questioning you for no reason. That's illegal. Should not be done that. Important to note, most a time when law enforcement pulls you over, they're just trying to get money. They're just trying to like do their fundraising and pull people over and whatnot. Yes, sometimes you are speeding. That's your fault. That's bad. Don't speed. Don't break the law while driving. And at the same time, a lot of it is for this crazy fundraising technique that they have. Now, if you're being pulled over and it gets serious, know a few things. Number one, law enforcement, if they ask to search your car, never consent to a search. Typically, law enforcement needs reasonable suspicion to search your vehicle, that you've got drugs, weapons, you're doing some type of illegal activity. And if they have that suspicion, they can then search your vehicle. However, regardless of what suspicion they have, you should never consent to a searching of your vehicle. Now, how would this play out? Typically, law enforcement won't come and be like, "Good afternoon, sir. We would like to search your vehicle to see if you have any paraphernalia," something like that. No, they'd be like, "Sir, can you pop the trunk for us, sir? Can you pop the trunk for us?" Right? They won't even ask you a question, like give you an option. They'll be like, "Please pop the trunk. Sir, we're going to search your car." Right? This is kind of how they talk. And because people are not used to law enforcement, they think, "Oh, well, I guess they have the right to do that." No. If the police officer says, "Pop your trunk or we're going to search your vehicle," you should ask them, "Why? Why are you going to search my trunk? Why are you going to search my vehicle? I do not consent to the search of my trunk or my vehicle." Now, the officer, again, these guys have guns. They have, they're fully armed to the teeth. So you don't want to resist them. So you want to use your words and say, "I do not consent to a search of my trunk. I do not consent to a search of my car. I've done nothing wrong. There's nothing dangerous in the vehicle. There's nothing there." And most officers should respect and let you go. Now, if an officer wants to be very intense and aggressive about it, again, repeat your rights. "I do not consent to a search. I do not consent to a search." But don't resist the officers. If the officer demands you get out of your vehicle, get out of your vehicle. But do not consent. Do not give them authority. A lot of people, when they hear "open the trunk," they'll press the button to open their trunk, or they'll pull the lever to open the trunk. And now you've consented for them to search your trunk. So again, if officers want to do it anyway, don't play hero. Don't play whatever it is. Get out of the car. Don't press the button. Don't let them in. Let them do it. All right, you want to search the trunk of my car? I got to get out of the car, and then you got to do it yourself, right? And you have to repeatedly say, "I do not consent to a search." You have the right to also record officers during these encounters, and you should record the entire thing. So if I get pulled over by a cop, I've got my cell phone on my little magnetic thingy, and I just record everything. Also, I'd recommend, just as a driving technique, they have these cameras now you can put on the front and the back of your car, and it records every time you drive. So in case you're in an accident, you've got video footage, or if a cop pulls you over, you have video footage. Always, always, always record what's happening, because you don't want to be in a situation where it's your word against the police officer's word. No, you have documented proof of what happened. Never consent to a search. Obviously, answer their question to a certain extent. Give them your ID and proof of insurance, and that's it. Let's continue. If you're arrested or taken to a police station, follow these rights. We already talked about right to remain silent and not say anything until you have an attorney present. Perfect. Do not resist your arrest. If the law enforcement says you're being arrested, you can, of course, say, why am I being arrested? I've done nothing wrong. You can say that again and again, but don't resist the arrest. If the officer is going to arrest you, let them arrest you. If you resist your arrest, that can then be a charge. So initially, your arrest might have been unjust. But if you resist the arrest, then that can actually create problems. Officers, if they decide to arrest you, you're going to get arrested, and it's not the end of the world. Arrest simply means they put your hand behind handcuffs, they're going to take you to the police station, they're going to book you, and then they might keep you in the police station. You might make bail, which means that you have to pay a certain amount to get out, but that's typically after you have a hearing. And if they don't have a reason to keep you, they'll let you go after a certain amount of time. Different states have different amount of time they can hold you. Some states they can hold you for 24 hours as they collect evidence. Others 48 hours. Others have different times that they can hold you. But after that, unless they charge you with a crime formally, they have to let you go, right? So don't give them reason. Do not resist arrest. Stay calm, cool, and collective. It's not the end of the world. What's going to happen at the police station? You're going to come in. They're going to book you, take your fingerprints, take a photo, take some other information, put you in a holding cell. If they charge you with a crime, then there's going to be a whole other legal process. If they don't charge you with a crime, then after a certain number of hours, they'll let you go. Family members and other people can come in to the police station, figure out what's going on, ask law enforcement. You get an attorney involved, and the attorney is the best able to actually get you out of that situation right away. Document and report. If you feel that you're being mistreated, document it and report it. Try to get witnesses. Try to record what happened. Get an attorney involved, and that attorney can be the one that can protect your rights better than anybody else. Remember that. Now, it's important to note when it comes to booking, most states in America believe that wearing the hijab and the religious covering is part of your religious right. And if you get a photo taken while in police custody, it should be with your hijab on, right? So many police departments have jail hijabs that they can give you, and then they take your photo, and they should not rip off your hijab or take off your hijab for these photos. It's important to understand that if you are living in a city in which the police department does not have a hijab policy, then you should address it with them and get that resolved. Going to jail doesn't mean you're like a mass murderer, criminal, crazy, whatever it is. Most people in jail are here for small, minor offenses, something like this happens, right? And you don't lose your religious rights because of that. So remember that if you're part of a city that does not have a hijab policy, work with the city police department, work with the mayor's office, contact them, encourage them to implement a hijab policy, and that hijab policy will then, inshallah, God willing, help multiple people in the future. All right, guys, let's continue. If you're contacted by the Department of Homeland Security, typically for immigration and custom reasons, remember these few areas. Number one, U.S. citizenship and immigration services. USCIS might contact you, along with Custom and Border Protection and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE. These are the different agencies that are involved. USCIS is typically the agency involved in processing your immigration case. CBP are cross-border patrol. They're the people that are at the ports of entry within Mexico and American border, America and Canada border, and other borders as well. That's where you'll see a lot of these type of people. ICE is the Immigration and Custom Enforcement, meaning that they're the ones that become infamous on the news lately for basically going to people, finding them if they're undocumented, and then deporting them. And part of the deportation process also means holding them in certain facilities, which should have been only for a short period of time, but now it's for like months at a time, which is very unjust and unfair. These are the agencies that you might interact with as you're dealing with immigration areas. All these agencies are under the Department of Homeland Security. Let's continue. Now, if you're contacted by the Department of Homeland Security as a non-citizen, here are the protections that you have. Number one, you have the right to an attorney. Even if you're a non-citizen, you have the right to an attorney who can represent you, and you have a right to that attorney to then also have interpretation services so you understand what's going on. Number two, never sign anything blindly. Never sign anything blindly. Understand all documents before you sign them. Sometimes they'll present to you a document and they'll just say, sign here. Never sign anything without your attorney present or without understanding exactly what that document is, what that document does. Attorneys at hearings. When you have a hearing in front of a judge, you also have a right to have counsel during those hearings. You have a right to have an attorney during those hearings as well, unless, of course, you waive that right. That means that you just say, I'll just come to this counsel hearing, or you don't know that you have the right to an attorney, so you'll just come to these hearings and you won't have an attorney present. It can be very detrimental. In addition to that, you should carry your documents everywhere you go. In America today, and actually at any time, immigrants who are here with different visas, with different type of legal statuses, carry your documents with you. Don't say, I have my document at my home. Law enforcement is not going to go to your home and find your documents and bring it to you. Carry it with you everywhere you go. Always be ready to present those papers if you're approached by law enforcement. You also have the right to only answer limited questions. So what that means is that you don't have to answer every single question these people ask you. You should answer your status shown, like what type of status you are in the country. And then after that, you should not answer more questions unless you have an attorney or somebody present. Show them the documents that you have if they question you and go from there. Protected topics. So there are several topics that are protected by US law. Law enforcement agencies cannot ask you about your religion. Are you Sunni, Shia? Or your political beliefs? Do you support Donald Trump? Do you not support Donald Trump? Do you support this or do you not support that? You should say firmly, I'm not going to talk about these issues. They're very inappropriate. I'll talk to you about my status and this type of stuff. Here's my documentation. And after that, don't talk unless you have an attorney present. It's very important to understand these rights so you can be best protected. Let's continue. Let's summarize this. In quick summary, you have the right to an attorney, whether you're a citizen or you're a non-citizen. In addition to that, search warrants. Never consent to a warrantless search warrant, whether it's in your home, your car, or even your cell phone and your other devices. You should not unlock your cell phone, your laptop, your tablet to law enforcement unless they have a search warrant to do so. Do not give them your password. Do not give them your PIN, because inside your phone and devices, you have every piece of information out there. Social media, banking information, personal photos, personal videos, your children's photos, your wife's photos, and other photos. You do not want to give that to law enforcement. You can give them the device, but they should not be able to get access to that. Police stops and silence. If you're pulled over by the police, you have the right to remain silent. If you're in a car, give them your ID. If you're on the street, you can give them your ID. But after that, don't feel compelled to answer questions, no matter how officers say it. And again, officers are going to be a little bit jerky about it, but you have the right to not answer questions, and you should maintain that right. Let's continue. Finally, let's talk about the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Sadly, after September 11th, the FBI completely lost its mind. There was this false narrative in America that law enforcement also pushed and made legitimate, which is that in America, there are countless sleeper cells of Muslims in this country. And those sleeper cells can be activated any time. And that Muslims can become radicalized, as if uranium hit the Muslim and they became radical. They got claws going out of their hand, their teeth are growing. They can become radicalized if they see a certain video or somebody talks to them. This type of nonsense, hate bait, racism, and Islamophobia was infected, especially within the FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigation saw a golden money ticket. FBI work is very serious and very demanding work. It's an agency that's very important to the United States. And if you work in that agency, to work in multiple departments is tough, grinding work. However, if you work in the counterterrorism department, in the catch a Muslim department, then that department, you can basically BS your way through the department, push and peddle conspiracies in the department, hire criminals to infiltrate the Muslim community, to then commit crimes, and then we catch those criminals before they do those crimes, and then you get a promotion, right? So the serious work of the FBI was seriously degraded for years and years and years by these cowboy FBI agents. Now let's talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI is a government agency, a law enforcement agency, whose job it is to investigate crimes that happen across state borders or over multiple states. So for example, if there's a criminal crime that happens in the state of Texas, then local law enforcement and police and others will be involved. But if it happens over multiple states, then the FBI gets involved. And what happened to the FBI and the Muslim community, that we have a very contentious, difficult history because of the FBI's racism, bigotry, opportunism, infiltrating of our community, spying on our community, profiteering from our community, and a whole history of terrible action taken by the FBI. So let me paint the context. After September the 11th, America lost their mind. America lost their mind, and they had no idea what to do and how to respond. The people who allowed September 11th to happen, and I don't mean conspiracy theories, I mean the failures of government agencies to locate, stop, and prevent this attack, rather than being fired and held accountable, they were rewarded with increased budgets, increased funding, and overall forgiveness. Now, what happened is that America had this conspiracy theory mindset that's pushed by anti-Muslim racists who were just a bunch of Looney Tunes. And they said, well, actually, in America, there are sleeper cells. There are Muslim sleeper cells all around the country. There are groups of Muslims who are already radicalized. You know, they're part of the X-Men, and they've been hit with plutonium and uranium. They become radicalized. Their beard grows bigger. You know, they start saying, mashallah, 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 right? Stuff like that. So these people are in our country. They're sleeper cells, and they're part of this complicated network of sleeper cells that are connected to overseas terrorists. And the only way to stop these people from doing their attacks is that the FBI has to infiltrate every Islamic center, every masjid, every imam, every Muslim organization, and everybody's suspect, right? So the entire Muslim community became under the watch of the FBI. Now for the FBI, you have to understand, working in law enforcement is a very serious career. Working in law enforcement is very serious, it's very hard, difficult, painful work that takes years to investigate crimes and to get justice. However, if you're part of the FBI after September 11th and you are blessed enough to be part of the counterterrorism task force, then you are chilling. You got to jump into the FBI's counterterrorism task force and fight an enemy that doesn't exist and fight a threat that isn't there. Now, what do you do in that situation? Well, you still have to justify your outrageously large government budget. You have to justify all these agents and all the work that you're doing. You have to put in billable hours. Yes, sir, I put in this much hour. Yes, sir, we got a lot of work to do, sir. And so that way the United States government was still giving you a blank check so you can do your work. So let's say you're an FBI agent and now you're in the counterterrorism task force. Day one, when you join, you're like, all right, let's get all these dirty sleeper cells, all these dirty radicalized mausoleums, and let's get them. And then you realize very quickly, wait a second, there's not actually that many Muslim terrorists in the country. And in fact, when you compare Muslims and terrorists to gangs, drug cartels, narcotics, human trafficking, and the other serious crimes that are out there along with white collar criminals, there are thousands or tens of thousands of those people and criminals, while in the Muslim community, you got like 6 in the whole nation or less, close to 0. So, but your budget is larger than the budget for drugs, for cartels, for everybody else. So how do you justify that budget? You need billable hours. You need to become a BS expert. And that's exactly what the FBI did for years, for decades. So what is their mode of operation? All right, we're agents. What are we going to do? We are going to infiltrate the Muslim community. We're going to start spying on people's telephone calls. Ha ji, kaise ho? Ha ji, acha, ha ji, acha, ha ji. Yes, yes, yes. You know, they're translating into yes, yes, yes. They're going to go to every falafel store and restaurant, and they're going to start monitoring 24/7. Yes, falafel. They got the new tzatziki sauce. Yes, yes. Billable hours, billable hours. We're doing a lot of work. And they're going to meet with imams, community leaders, and basically any idiot who's willing to talk to them. And they're going to try to create this grand network plan of how people are connected to terrorism. So you ate at this falafel restaurant and the owner of the falafel restaurant has a cousin overseas and his cousin goes shopping in the supermarket and the guy who buys tomatoes from his barber's cousin's second roommate is Osama bin Laden. So now you are related to terrorism. Whoa, okay, now we got something going on. Now we got some magic happening. So the FBI spent literal years spying on falafel stores, Islamic centers, Muslim phone calls, Muslim community. And after even one day of it, if you were a sane, reasonable person that had ethics and morals, you'd be like, wait a second, this community is actually not really a threat. They're actually doing a really good job of fighting extremism and radicalization because their religion is a middle path religion. Maybe we should focus on other problems, not the FBI, not in America. If there's money coming, there's going to be money you're rolling. So if you don't have terrorism and suspects, what do you need to do? Well, unfortunately, you have to create terrorist plot. So the FBI routinely would go into jails, would go into prisons and hire convicted criminals and be like, hey, you're a dirty, disgusting criminal. Do you want to get out of jail and get paid a ton of money? Yes? Okay, good. Welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. So they'd go into jails, hire these dirty, filthy, disgusting criminals, pay them money to basically become undercover FBI agents and informants. They'd pay them money and basically be like, all right, you go to that Islamic center and please, for God's sakes, yeah, I'll convert to Islam if you do this. Get one of these dirty mausoleum Muslims to do some type of terrorist attack. Please, for God's sakes, do that. So they would hire these people, pay them money, and these people then go into the masjid, into the Muslim community, like, how you doing, akhi? I'm a new Muslim. Yeah, I'm a new Muslim. I just accepted Islam. I love Islam. All right? And they'd come into the Muslim community, and they'd basically pretend to be Muslims, and then every time you be with the people, they're like kind of crazy people. They'd be like, hey, that jihad thing, who loves jihad in here? Yeah, can I get a G for jihad, right? Who here loves Osama? Yeah. You know, America is such a bad country. They keep bombing our brothers and sisters. Akhi, akh. They keep bombing our brothers and sisters overseas. Akhi, akh. We should go do something about it, right? And even though the FBI hired countless informants and paid them God knows how much money to infiltrate our community, they still struggled to get good terrorists out of it. So what did they do? Typically, these informants would come into the community, be so crazy, be so radicalized, Muslims would actually call the FBI, be like, oh my God, there's this terrorist guy here. And it's like, oh, well, that guy works for us actually, right? This happened quite frequently across the country. But every so often, alhamdulillah to the FBI, they would find a Muslim who has mental illness, a Muslim who has severe mental disability. And this is why everybody should become Muslim in America, because if you become Muslim, then great news. You have no more mental disability. You have no more mental faculty problems. White people, when they do crimes, mental disability, and we should have more mental health screening and tests. Okay, when Muslims do crime, that's not a possibility. Muslim, when they do crime, it is because they're sound mind, reasonable, intelligent, well thought out, well sophisticated people. Okay, so the FBI would get these criminal informants to be radicalized in our community, and they'd get people, and then they'd eventually find people who are poor, broke, desperate, mentally ill, and these people would do a terrorist attack. So these agents who were put into the community would basically literally pay people to commit terrorist attacks. And there's so many examples of this. One example that happened in the city that I was in, you have this poor kid from Bangladesh, struggling financially. He almost becomes homeless. The FBI informant gets him a house. He's told by this informant, if you go to this area, take this cell phone, press a button, a bomb will go off, but we will wire your parents, hundreds of thousands of dollars, something crazy like that. This kid does not know how to make a weapon, does not know how to make a bomb. In fact, he doesn't even have enough money to get to the place. So the FBI actually had to pick him up from his apartment, send him there. They had to give him the plans, the plot, the money, the drive, everything. And then once he got there, he unfortunately did get the phone, pressed the button, nothing happened. The FBI came and arrested him. And frequently, whenever there'd be a Muslim terrorist attack in America, the FBI would always say the same thing. Oh, we already knew about this person. We've been following them for a long time. Yeah, we knew all about that individual. And then we arrested that individual. This happened for years and years and years and years and years until Allah sent the freedom for the Muslim community, until Allah sent a man, Donald J. Trump, to become president of the United States. And then we went from Muslims being attacked and targeted in these crazy plots to now the FBI be like, holy moly, we have white supremacy people trying to overthrow the country, the January 6th riots, and all of that basically stopped. Thanks to Donald Trump, right? And his stupidity, his racism, and his incompetence. So that's a little bit of history about the US and the FBI. Now, after that really long, intense history, what do you and I have to know? The FBI still has remnants of this very troubled past. And the FBI still does routinely visit Muslims for billable hours because they got to get money, got to get paid. Yes, Congress, we went to 10,000 people's homes and did 10,000 investigations. They start to get their billable hours. So what do? The FBI will routinely visit imams, members of the Muslim community, in order to talk to them, in order to get them into a situation where they can then become the FBI's informant, where they then owe the FBI, and there's this corrupting factor within the community. So what do we have to remember? Number one, if you or anyone you know is ever visited by the FBI, do not speak to them. Do not let them in your home. FBI agents, in 99% of the cases with our community, are not there to conduct a search warrant. They're not there because you're in trouble. No. They're just there to get billable hours. You are a money-making machine for the FBI, and that's why they're coming to your home. And what they want you to do is they want to talk to you, to get you to say something, or to disclose some financial information or immigrant information, so they can use it against you, so you can then become a shill for the FBI and basically spy on the Muslim community and tell them, Auntie Saab opened up a falafel restaurant and she talked to her cousin overseas and he says, ji ha, acha, yes. That's what the FBI kind of wants. And this, I'm making it funny, is very serious. If FBI agents come to your home, it's very scary. And agents typically come, because they've been trained very well, they're very polite. They'll come and say, listen, you're not in trouble, everything's okay, we just want to talk. And because we're nice Muslim people, we love hosting others, we have nothing to hide. If you got nothing to hide, why won't you let them in your home, right? That's the mentality we have. So Muslims will let the FBI agents into your home. Once they're in your home, everything that they see, every conversation they have, they're able to record it and use that against you. If FBI agents visit your home, you should never let them into your home. You should say, hey, listen, I have an attorney. You can contact that attorney, get their business cards, ask for their business cards, and say, I'll call you back. And if they're like, please come and do an interview with us, unless you're in trouble, just deny the interview. Just don't go. Tell the attorney, I'm not interested in speaking with the FBI, and the attorney will call the FBI and cancel their interview. The reason the FBI does this in the Muslim community is because Muslims are from oppressed countries, many of us, and we feel we have to speak to law enforcement. And because we speak to law enforcement, they now have billable hours, they have cases they can work on, so they get more money from Congress to then spy and it hurt the community. So the best thing is never speak to the FBI. Only the ignorant Muslims who don't know any better, or the arrogant Muslims. I'm smart, I'm a doctor, I'm intelligent, I know what I'm doing, I'm better than everybody else. Ignorant and arrogant Muslims are the only people that talk to the FBI, and it hurts everybody. The other thing the FBI does is they use immigration status against people. Many imams that you know who are very popular in the country, have at one point been basically blackmailed by the FBI to spy on them. Now, again, it's not as bad as you might think. The FBI agent will come, they say, hey, listen, Imam, we can help you with your wife's immigration situation, your parents' immigration situation, with your immigration situation. Dear Imam, you're a good Imam, you're a good patriot of the country. You know, if you see anything, hear anything, know of anything, please call us and tell us. Hey, Imam Saab, we heard this was happening in our community. Can you educate us non-Muslim dirty people who don't know anything about your religion? Can you educate us about this thing and that thing and what your thoughts on Palestine, Israel, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs? Because we're just dumb, white, and non-Muslim people that don't know anything. And, you have to give dawah and we want you to talk to us. This is typically what the FBI does. They use our hospitality, they use our naivety, they use our ability to try to be helpful and good Americans against the community. And our people are just too ignorant or arrogant to understand that they know we're not a threat. They know fundamentally in their hearts that we're not a threat, but we're easy. It's easy for them to come into our doors, get billable hours, show they're doing a lot of work, while when they try to investigate white supremacists, when they try to go after the Proud Boys, when they try to go after Epstein, when they try to go after these others, they're then met with lawsuits, blockade, and they have to do very serious, hard work. But if you're the FBI and the counterterrorism task force within the Muslim community, you get to go in, you get to hire some rapist, some criminal to go into the Muslim community, and you pray every night to whatever God you worship that please let one of these dirty Muslims do something so I can get a promotion. And then eventually, lo and behold, somebody does something. Don't worry, nobody's in actual danger. Nobody's actually at the threat of being hurt, but you get to arrest that person, hold a huge press conference, and get a promotion. Great. So that's how the FBI works. Beware of undercover informants. Beware that the FBI can lie to you. They make stuff up. They know you don't understand the government. You think that if you know one FBI agent, then that person is the government of the United States, and they can help you with your immigration status, they can help you with your business, they can help you bring your family overseas, they can help with this and that. They cannot do any of that. They lie repeatedly. They give you false promises because they understand we as a community have no idea what the difference between the FBI, the CIA, the police, the lifeguard, the Coast Guard, the IRS. We don't have the Food and Drug Administration. We have no clue what any of this stuff is. So we think that they can help us. They cannot. Avoid the FBI. Do not invite them to community events. If the FBI is coming to your community event at your masjid has been compromised. And the agents are for sure taking note of everybody who's there, what they say, what they hear, what they talk about. And that's part of it. One of the reasons the FBI does these community events is because the FBI doesn't want to be known as this racist, evil organization that's just basically bankrolling off the Muslim community. So how can they be bad if they're working with the local masjid, the local imam, the local community uncle leader, and they're doing these great citizens, events at masjid where Muslims get to come and be good citizens and go through some citizenship training or whatever type of stuff it is. Look, the FBI has great relationship with the Muslim community. The FBI's job is to protect and serve people. We know what they're doing in our community is wrong because they do not do that anywhere else. Go online. Check out when was the last time you've ever seen the FBI doing a church event or the FBI doing a community citizenship event at churches or at synagogues or Jewish temples. When? It never happens. Think about that, my brothers and sisters. Think. Use your brains and think. This is a serious issue based on the naivety of the Muslim community. Don't speak to the FBI agents. Don't invite them into your home. Ask for their business cards if they come to your house and say you'll contact them later. And after that, don't speak to them unless you're part of an actual investigation. Then you're forced to speak to them. And if you do speak to them, give them as little information as possible. At the end of the day, the FBI's job is to protect America. They're going to protect your masjid, not because they like you, but because that's their job. So if there's an actual threat to your Islamic center, your school, your community, it's the FBI's job to protect you from that. That's their job. That's their role. If they don't do that, people are going to get fired from the FBI. They're going to get in trouble. So it's not like, I have to build a good relationship with the FBI, so we're buddy, pals. I give them secret information about the Muslim community in our day-to-day lives. I go against the Constitution that gives us the right of protection and against illegal searches and seizures. I'm going to give that away because then they're going to protect me and my community. And they're not, man. They're already doing that. Like, use some common sense, please. So this is something that, as you can tell, frustrates me like no other. FBI not your friend. No community events with the FBI. If there's a threat to the masjid, you tell them. If there's a radical Muslim or some crazy person about to do an attack, call law enforcement, report that person. That person needs to go to jail. We don't have any sympathy for that individual. But other than that, don't be cozy, warmed up. If the FBI does not investigate other communities the way they do us, it's not fair. It shouldn't be done. Now, like I said, alhamdulillah, America has serious problems in the nation because of the current administration, with January 6th riots, with white supremacy, with almost like multiple groups trying to actually overthrow the United States government. So now their tactic against the Muslim community is much less, but it's still there. Know your rights, defend your rights, and don't be afraid of the FBI. Use them in their proper resource, and by doing so, let's push back. They can focus on actually keeping all Americans safe. I hope you enjoyed this educational workshop on how to engage with law enforcement and along with the FBI. Again, this is something that all of us should know. Unfortunately, in our nation, some law enforcement agencies, individuals, systems, times of our history, agencies go a little bit off the rail. It is our duty to understand our rights so we can keep a balance there. And for you to understand that don't speak to law enforcement unless you have to, remain silent, get an attorney involved. These are your legal protections for a reason. They're not your buddies, they're not your friends, they're not your pals, right? So remember that as you associate within society. The FBI should definitely not be involved in any masjid event or community events. You can get the police involved. Yeah, do police dinners, give dinner to the police, make them food, whatever it is. But the FBI is a completely different story. You should not engage with them at all in any capacity. If you know imams who are engaged in the FBI and are given false promises, speak to them, tell them to end that relationship, get them an attorney, and cease that area as much as possible. Agents can and will lie to you. They will manipulate you. Don't fall for that manipulation. Remember, law enforcement is an important part. If you see a crime, report it. If you're in trouble, report it. Call law enforcement. That is their job. They don't defend you because they like you or dislike you. They defend you because that's their job. That's their duty. This is not, I like him, so I'm going to do that. And I don't like them, so I'm not going to do it. That's crazy talk. Remember these rights, defend your rights, and hopefully this has been very helpful. With that, I want to say Jazakallah khair and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.